Welcome to a special edition of the Collingwood Rant. I'm Sly.
And it's not so special, Spook.
We're going to look at the political situation, Spook. It's heated up, has it? I don't know.
Sorry, I can only use sentences with asshole and Dan Andrews in it.
You're going to
What political situation are you talking about?
Talking about the Collingwood political situation.
Oh, sorry.
Let me
Sorry. We're going to talk about something that makes sense.
Let me ask you what your preferred
Asshole?
situation is. No. So in terms of what's your preferred situation? The incumbents remain in power. Jeff Brown sweeps into power with his merry band of misfits who we don't know who they are. Or there's some sort of hybrid board.
Yeah, you talking what I think is going to happen or my preferred outcome?
We'll talk about both. So what's your preferred outcome? I mean, I have this has escalated to my list, but I'll wait until you go. So what's your preferred outcome?
As I really haven't changed my position on this, that there are a number of board members that I don't want to see go. There's a couple I probably couldn't care less about. So I'm thinking with that respect that the hybrid one would be the choice out of there. I'm struggling to see what purpose anymore the spill would make, and I'm sure we'll come back and cover this later.
Okay, well, my preference, given the plethora, I don't know if plethora is the right collective noun, but given the plethora,
using that word, I'm just not sure you know what it means.
Given the plethora of shit that's unraveled on socials and on message boards, my preference now, I've done a flip, is that Mark Corder comes out tomorrow, announces fixed terms for the presidency, and that fixed term is 23 years. And he says, I will be leaving this place in 2044. You are stuck with me. If you don't like it, bad fucking luck. That's my preference now. I'm just sick of...
He's going to leave.
Sorry?
He's leaving when we come out of lockdown.
We won't be out of lockdown by 2044. That's my preference now. So what do you think will happen? So you think it will be a hybrid board, or do you think what?
I mean, judging by the scuttlebutt that a hybrid board is looking more and more likely, and that's obviously to avoid a full spill. Again, I don't think at this point now anymore that the full spill, let me try that again in English. The full spill is warranted. If you have to look logically around what's happened since Eddie left, they've done good work. From the outside, it looks like they've done good work. Things are clearly changing and heading in the right direction. The coaching appointment was immaculate. I mean, I still haven't read a single negative comment
on the
process that was employed.
Can I just interject quickly?
You wouldn't look at any of that and think, fuck, there's some of these people here deserve a bit of praise for pulling this off. This is probably the most un-Collingwood thing I can remember in a long time.
Yeah.
Which clearly sort of should say to you that there are functions of the board that are working.
Well, let me throw in something here. You go over across the whatever Carlton's headquarters is called now. No idea.
Floptus Oval.
Yeah. At the time of recording this, they're saying that Clarkson has again said no to the Blues.
Yeah, that was on AFL 360 tonight.
And, I mean, effectively, what Carlton are doing to Clarkson is really just bordering on stalking now. It's just like, come on, come across. Clarkson has maintained from the beginning, I'm taking the fucking year off. And he hasn't deviated from that. So for all the people who said, oh, we should do him regardless, it's like, well, he's showing he doesn't want to coach. So Carlton, or the scuttlebutt is now Carlton will be appointing Michael Voss. Now the thing is, you go back just a few weeks ago when
I'm still laughing at Voss.
Yeah. Well, you go back just a few weeks ago, and Carlton was saying, "Well, we're going to run a process like Collingwood." And it's like Collingwood began their process with pretty much every person who was coaching in the competition, assistant coaches included, and also a few on the outside, like Ross Lyon and Brad Scott. And then they whittled their way down until they got to their short list, and then they kept whittling. And they took months to do that. Carlton said they're going to run a process. I have not heard them talk to anyone in the last couple of weeks. And it's like we've gone back to Clarkson again. The popular line was, oh, there's people inside Carlton who still believe they can flip Clarkson. He's told them,
flip off.
Yeah, well, pretty much I would have thought that's what he's told them. And now it's like, oh, so they're appointing vice. It's like, what fucking process have they run? And you compare that to what Collingwood did, where they actually had an exhaustive methodology to find the candidates. You think, as you said, it's the most un-Collingwood thing I've seen also. Everyone's happy with the appointment. And it's like, you know what? I'll use the analogy that you can have a football team who's doing poorly and you sack the coach. And once someone new comes in, that football team starts performing under new leadership and it becomes a lot more effective. And I'll fucking say it straight out. Since Eddie Maguire's gone, while that board had massive teething problems going into post-Eddie era, they've actually done a pretty good job. And they've just sort of kept their heads down and just tried to do work. And they've constantly been hit by the fuck-ups over the Bridie O'Donnell and Neil Wilson thing, but they've actually just worked anonymously in the background outside of the people who continue to pot them.
See, the thing is with those two things, look, the easiest thing is just to fucking scream at clouds over it.
Well, people are doing
those two people were put in under the same fucking process that didn't trouble anyone for 23 years.
Well, and Eddie Maguire,
no reason why they wouldn't think just doing it again was just par for the course.
And they shouldn't have. And we should they should have actually divorced themselves from the Maguire process. Eddie Maguire did that when he first stepped into the power. He brought 3 people in. But like I've had a total flip on this. It's like, well, if Neil Wilson and Bridie O'Donnell are the 2 best candidates, because I keep saying, oh, they overlook good Collingwood people for these 2. Well, are these 2 the best people for the job, or should we go for the second best person because they're Collingwood people? You know what? Give me the fucking best person for the job. And the thing is, you get people who run around going about the coaching before we appointed anyone, or even before we appointed Buckley, is like, do not appoint a Collingwood person. Go outside the gene pool, get someone else. But when it comes to administrators, only appoint Collingwood people because that's what's good for the club. Well, there's a bit of hypocrisy and double standards happening there. Fucking just give me. I don't care who the best person is. Just go get them.
Yeah, look, I think no matter which way you cut it, Bridie was a dead person walking. The social media stuff derailed that right from the outset.
Well, but that's where they should have handled it better with both of them from the beginning. They should have just said, look, we're not appointing anyone. These are the candidates we're talking about. Would like feedback from the members. What do you think? These are the reasons we're appointing them. This is where we believe they're going to benefit the club and where we need their expertise. And they should have gotten in front of the Bridie thing. Maybe the reality is that with COVID cutbacks, they didn't do the vetting that they should have did. But they should have said, Bridie doesn't come to us as a Collingwood tragic, but she has a sporting background and she's elite in sports science. So she's going to be invaluable. And they should have really just sold it instead of just going, here's the 2 new appointees. We're going to ratify them later. And that really pissed everyone. And it pissed us off at the time too. But that's where they should have changed it.
See, and the thing is, like, you look at the flip side of things. Did McRae barrack for Collingwood? Did he have a Collingwood membership? Doesn't it apply to staff as well? This principle?
Yeah, well, as I said,
sure. It's the Collingwood faithful have joyfully opened their arms up to 2 blokes that crushed us twice in a grand final. 2 decades ago now? Whatever.
Going on 2 decades.
If you can accept that, can't you fucking accept someone coming in who doesn't necessarily meet this fucking criteria? And then on the criteria too, I think it's fucking time to piss it off. 2 years membership of an institution to get in it's borderline farcical. I mean, I wouldn't expect to go to the fucking NAB and get knocked back for a job because I haven't held a bank account there for 2 years. If you're the best person and the best fit for the fucking job, that should be enough.
Yeah, totally.
And I think it's time to piss off this requirement that you've got to be a 2-year social club member to do it. When was that drafted? Back in 1893?
Yeah. And it was probably drafted because they wanted financial input from the people running the club, for a while as a, testament to their commitment and all that sort of shit, whatever the hell they were doing 100 years ago. But yeah, as I said, get the best person, whoever the fuck that is. If that's a Carlton person, it's like when all the legal stashing was going on between Corder and Brown and people are going, oh, fuck, look, Collingwood's now using a Carlton lawyer. It's like, so fucking what? In fact, Carlton Loy should have more experience at this sort of shit too. It's like, go get, here's the fucking best. And just to sort of go on this, I mean, the fucking narrative kills me. Collingwood spending good money on a lawyer so these board members can hold their position, even though they came out and go, no, this guy's doing it pro bono. Don't worry about the truth. You had last week the outrage about, apparently Corder's going to hand off the presidency to Murphy. And it's like, what won't this board do to hold power? Murphy came out the next day and goes, no, it's not fucking true. Okay. But hang on, you got to have the outrage. Then you have accusations of factions and infighting and backstabbing. None of it is fucking going on, but you have the same people yelling at clouds. It's no crowds anymore. You have the same people yelling at clouds because it suits their narrative, and they're shouting to their 70 Twitter followers, well fucking done. Those 70 people will turn the tide, and this is not like to advocate for the incumbents or anything. But seriously, the landscape is continuing to change, and you're still beholden to things that you're holding onto, 6 months ago, and you're being totally inflexible about that, then you're a fucking moron. Because really, if you are just going to stick to decisions because you made them ages ago while the landscape changes entirely, then you're as guilty as the people who fucking enforce that succession plan and consign Collingwood to 9 out of 10 years of mediocrity. It's like shit changes. Adapt with it. And again, that's not to endorse Corder or anyone. That obviously needs to be changed at that club. I'm actually concerned that what is happening, we're talking about the scuttlebutt is, there's going to be a hybrid board. Okay, so we're just going back down the Collingwood path, are we? Just as we're getting away from it, we're just going to go back down that Collingwood path. And I'm like, it's actually just made me feel really flat. I would rather the incumbent board fought it out and either won or lost, or Brown went for the jugular and either won or lost, rather than this. I know it sounds weird to sort of just be saying, well, don't compromise, don't negotiate. But, you look at that EGM group, which we were a part of, their narrative was there should be no backroom deals. It's about spilling every single position. It's about democracy, and we're neutral in this. It's like, well, you can tick all those off because they're fucking that none of that's happening apparently. It is about a backroom deal. It's going to be about a hybrid compromise. And it's not about spilling every position. So fuck. Where are we now? We're just back at where everyone, if you actually look what that EGM group was attacking, and I'd say the same thing. It's like, okay, I'll be back on side of them in regards to, okay, so it's just going to come down to a deal, is it? And that really worries me. It's just, we just got away from Collingwood, but now we're back into Collingwood. That scares me.
Yeah, I can understand that. I guess the viewpoint is now really, look, I mean, there's clearly two scenarios that's going to either eventuate. One is that the whole board is spilled, and apparently that's far better than the devil, in terms of you can just have anyone come in there and it's going to be a better fucking place on the other side, which is fine, assuming one day that maybe we'll get some people announced about who's going to be standing.
Well, that's the other thing.
Well, the other one is the hybrid concept, which may or may not be a particularly good thing. That sort of feels like it's not so much selling out. It's again, look, my fear with that sort of thing is that we've taken some monumental steps, walking away from classic Collingwood decisions, only to fall back on what feels like a comfort zone one. Which may not necessarily be the right thing. Sometimes, like I think you've said a couple of times, it's either you've got a choice of making the hard decisions or the easy ones. And this really does feel a little bit like the easy one.
Yeah.
And that's a lot to do with, I've never heard the name Jeff Brown up until recent times, especially affiliated with Collingwood. And what's your interest in suddenly wanting to be president, not being on the board or anything, but jumping right to the top of the tree and being president? You could have stood with the board for ages and had a crack at this. I know, and you can obviously say that there are circumstances where you look at something and think that it's broken beyond belief and only I can fix it. But I don't know, it just all feels like fucking smack.
That's no longer applicable though, because I mean, if you go to the last few months just with the coaching appointment, things are fixable because they're doing a good job in that regard. There's still clearing up. I mean, we want to talk about the salary cap at another point, but they're still cleaning up shit that, I think was left over by previous leadership. And that's not to excuse everyone, but I mean, it kills me sometimes when you have these conversations with people going, and like I used to do it too, but the board was there, they're complicit. It's like, okay, so the people who got there in 2018 are complicit in a decision that was made in 2017. Okay, that makes sense. And it's this whole thing of, well, they should have walked away. They should have resigned. It's like, okay, so rather than fighting for the club they love, they should have just walked off and left it in this tyranny. And the fucking thing too that, it really kills me. It's like they should have stopped the Maguire. He's no longer there. Why do you think he's no longer there?
This is a bloke who is criminally obsessed with his favourite toy. Just suddenly decide to pack up and go away.
Yep. And I mean, I recall Lee Matthews back mid-year. He was saying, oh, well, the board turned on him in the end. It's like, well, how long was that building? Because there was things happening that were showing that, I guess, Maguire's, the extent of his power base was starting to diminish, and where he felt, well, I'm going, I'm out of here. And the question I always go back to is, Eddie resigned at the virtual members forum last year. That was before the Do Better report was released and his disastrous press conference. He said he was going to take a year to groom a successor. Now, the query I always put out there is, was that successor Jeff Brown? Was it going to be Jeff Brown? And the thing too that really shits me is, like, I read things, I try not to read things, but you fucking send them to me, so stop doing it. You see these people going, oh, Jeff Brown's not going to be Eddie's puppet. Jeff Brown's his own man. It's like, Jeff Brown can be his own man, and he can also reintroduce Eddie Maguire to the club. They're not two mutually exclusive things. He's been on record saying he would use Maguire, and nothing against Eddie Maguire. Yeah, and there's nothing against Eddie Maguire, mate. You were there for 23 years. Thank you for your service, but it's time to move forward and do something new and different. And this is what a lot of people are complaining about for years. Don't give me the past. Give me the fucking future. And bringing Eddie back in any capacity, even as a patron or whatever, no, I'm sorry, that's still the past, okay? Let's move on. You've cut ties with the previous president. You've cut ties with the previous long-term coach. You're going to have a new board, whatever way it falls, come December. So let's actually move into the future with a new perspective, new vision, and totally new ideas. Don't be beholden to anything from the fucking past. Let's just move forward. And, these people who seem to be operating a lot better and more, a lot more harmoniously now that, after Eddie's gone, give them, in whatever capacity, whether they're part of a hybrid board or they're solely part of their own board or whatever the case, to fucking do their job, because they've done okay. And the things people are still complaining about are the shit like the Bridie O'Donnell and Neil Wilson. Well, they were decisions made 6 months ago. The splashbacks come now. Okay, fine. But you're going to just hold on to those. Well, let's fucking keep complaining about, I don't know, the stupid stuff. Like, I remember one of the Browns' 7 points of criticism was the handling of Buckley being sacked, a club legend being shown the door. It's like, did you see the fucking football we were playing? That was a totally justifiable decision. They were going into a rebuild for like 3 to 5 years. They didn't feel Buckley was the right person to steer him there. The game plan had been steadily deteriorating. You had fucking games like those atrocities against Geelong, and I think they did it against Port, where for like 3 quarters they just kicked it from one side of the ground to the other and back again, and they just didn't know how to go forward. And it's like, you seriously are complaining that we dismissed this coach after 10 years? What, we didn't give him enough of a chance? Again, that's not disrespecting in terms of Buckley. It's just things that come apart. It happens to every coach. Eventually, every coach has their end date. And, even Lee Matthews, he coached Brisbane to, a three-peat. At some point, Brisbane said, yeah, that's it. You're done. So every coach has an endpoint, regardless of their accomplishments. And for Buckley, that was this year. So I don't know, it just frustrates me when you hear the shit that comes out. It's just sort of like, let's just keep clawing onto the past, keep throwing it out there, keep shouting at clouds. I have my 70 Twitter followers. I'm going to shout it out to them. And we're all going to fucking just now create a mutual circle jerk to just to reinforce one another and to sell our vision to whoever the fuck. And it's like, mate, just look at the way the landscape's changed. And then, again, if you still want to support Brown, I have no fucking problem. But it's just like, well, one, be totally honest about you wanting to support Brown. But two, have a clear vision of why you're doing that, wanting to go forward, rather than just keep dragging out the fucking past. It's just exhausting reading. It does my fucking head in. Outside of for context, it's just like people just, I don't know, they keep just throwing out the same sort of criticism. It's like, wasn't this about 9 years ago?
How many dead horses can you flog? Apparently a lot.
Oh, a lot when it comes to this. It's always the same shit being sold. And like I said, I mean, you keep sending me stuff to read, and I keep saying, stop sending me stuff to read, because it's just the same shit. You could actually send me something from, July or something, and I wouldn't even fucking know the difference, because a lot of the times it's just the same repetitive shit that means nothing, other than just being vocal now for the sake of vocal. And I think even people, I've had people, independent people, just sort of message me and just go, geez, I'm actually getting sick of this narrative too. It's just, we've had enough. Everyone wants to move forward at this point. So, I mean, that's my hope, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm just an idiot. And I acknowledge I flipped a bit, given where I was, 6 months ago and all that sort of stuff. But like I said, circumstances change, and in changing, I reassessed where I was standing. I thought, I actually want to change my viewpoints on certain things, as you fucking should when new information comes to hand.
No, totally agree.
Do you have like a preferred president of all the people we know? Brown, Corder, Murphy, Licuria, Sizer. I mean, you did pose Jody Sizer, I think it was last year, maybe.
Yeah, I'd still think that as a readily accepted point of stability, that would be the logical place to go. Murphy would have been probably first choice, but he's openly said on several occasions now, unless of course you're the media, that he doesn't want to do it. So, as long as he's happy to hang around, I'm happy with that. But I think, someone like Sizer or probably would be an ideal fit. Yeah, if Liquor wanted to take the role on, I'd be happy with that as well. I think he's clearly demonstrated some very good work in the last 12 months, along with Roddy and Murphy and yeah, mainly that group. But yeah, I'd be happy with either of those. Though I think probably Sizer would be the most readily accepted fit.
Yeah, it should actually be an interesting choice in terms of, I mean, Collingwood's never had a female president, but I mean, as you said, like, she doesn't appear to have the ego of, let's say, Eddie Maguire. And you really want to depower Collingwood or disempower Collingwood of that fucking ego, because it's just it's the thing that constantly causes them to self-harm. It's just really
and I think
amazing.
It's a good point too, because I think that she's demonstrated from the outside, like, I never met the person, so, but you can form an opinion on what you've seen, that would fight logically for the club, not fall back on the boo-rah and the here we are, we're the greatest thing since forever. All that rhetoric that used to just shit me to tears, I think that would never be used. Or not used to the same level of leverage that it used to be used at. I think it'd be a strong reinforced argument being made for anything that had to be dressed out in public.
Well, you go back to the Do Better press conference, and she was magnificent. If she wasn't there, that would have been even uglier than it was. And again, in the way Eddie Maguire spoke, there was things he was saying that were totally reasonable, but just his tone was just that confrontational. I'm going to knock you all down before you have the chance to knock me down. He comes out with that. It's a proud and historic day for Collingwood opening. It's like, mate, you've come here for a fight, and on this occasion, I think the journalists realize you're vulnerable, and they've just gone straight back at you. And that's caused instability at Collingwood at that time. You had sponsors threatening to go. So it's, in terms of what I've seen Jodie Size, she'd be great. Again, I don't know how good she'd be with football operations. They talk about, you need to have corporate contacts and all that sort of shit. No idea how she'd do with that. But on the other side, she'd be great. Do you worry that Jeff Brown may be a doorway for Eddie McGuire to come back? Let's say Jeff Brown does. Jeff Brown's 66, Eddie McGuire's 56. Let's say they introduce fixed terms of 3 to 4 years. So Jeff Brown does it until he's 70. You don't think you'd want to be doing this, until past 70. Do you have any concerns that Jeff Brown might go, I'll do it one term, and in year 2 or 3, he goes, well, I'm going to bring Eddie back. He's got a lot of useful information. And then for Eddie to then go, okay, I'll take over from Jeff Brown the way Jeff Kennett took over again at Hawthorn.
Oh, exactly that. Yeah, that's still my major concern. Out of all this, that this is just it's a conduit for Eddie to get back in, and then we're just back to square one again. You might as well just give up at that point, I think.
I know a lot of supporters who would, if Maguire returned to power or even returned to the club in some capacity. I know a lot of supporters who would just be really concerned, and the thing with, keep saying with Maguire, I mean, he obviously did some good for Collingwood, but I think his reputation is appreciated by decisions he inherited. He was there at the time when the decisions bore fruit. And the example I'll give is the MCG relocation, which was organised by the Kevin Rose administration, in which Eddie McGuire, according to Richard Stremski, Eddie McGuire initially opposed. He wanted to go to Telstra Dome. And
thank Christ he can get his way there.
Yeah, which was just new at that time. But then we moved, and it was like, oh, Eddie's moved us to the MCG. What a great move, and all that sort of shit. It's like, well, he wasn't even for that move. Apparently, he inherited it, and people have attributed it to him rather than the previous administration. And there's a few things like that. The Emirates sponsorship was the same thing. It was like Eddie signed this lucrative sponsorship. No, actually, the Kevin Rose administration did that. And I think because people attribute those decisions to him, they look at him like a savior. He saved the club. It's like, no, he didn't save the club. And I do recall, I actually recall having a conversation with Vic, who succeeded David Hatley in as the leader of the EGM group years and years ago. And he just talked about Collingwood being such a marquee brand that it wouldn't be hard to start knocking up sponsors once the club had pivoted and was getting back towards being successful. Sponsors would want to jump on board because that's the marquee that Collingwood carries, which is, I think it's a really good point, because, you're not some no-name club or struggling club or some club with a very unsuccessful history in all facets. You're a club that's, one of the biggest brands in the country. Why wouldn't you be able to get sponsors if you're winning? So Eddie, gets credited with pumping the club back up, but I think some of it was just a matter of route. It's going to happen once we started climbing the ladder again. So, and that's my concern too. Like I said, from this point, Leon, let's move into a new future rather than bringing in people from the past like Eddie McGuire or whoever to try and rejuvenate the club, because it doesn't need it anymore. Let me ask you, grand final this week.
Yep.
Your tip, Melbourne. Pretty much everyone I've tipped in this final series has lost. So I thought Geelong would be good, but geez, they were terrible. Melbourne Bulldogs. Who's your tip?
Melbourne Bulldogs.
Melbourne versus the Bulldogs.
Oh, well, I'm no great lover of Melbourne. They're just that club that just sort of sat in the background and just sort of annoyed you just by being there. The Dogs I have a soft spot for. I lived in West Footscray for a number of years, not far from the Whitten Oval. So there's a little bit of a loose sort of connection there. I mean, I'd love to see Treloar at the end of the day win a premiership. I don't give two shits the fact that we're paying for half of it. I think from the path that they're currently treading, they deserve to be there and they deserve to win it. Melbourne have a tendency not always to stand up when required. I think it's quite possible with the break and everything in between. Well, they played one game of football in about 28 days. that could have a detrimental impact. That the Dogs have got a run. They're quite they're gelled as a group. They're playing for each other. I think, with the fact that Beveridge has been through this before, and there's a few players there that have been through this before, they're quite well seeded, and I really hope that they pull it off.
Yeah, I'm actually going to tip. I think Melbourne will win, but like I said, everyone I've tipped is a loss. But Melbourne's look pretty formidable, and they have a pretty good spine. I don't know what the injury to May, whether he's going to come up or whether they're going to play someone injured. Gorn is pretty awesome. Bulldogs struggle in the ruck, but like you, I do want Bulldogs to win for Adam Treloar. Like to see him have some success. I'm actually, not trying to be parochial, but I'm actually glad it's pretty refreshing grand final, Melbourne and Bulldogs. It's sort of, it's like a really traditional Victorian team. So that'll actually be pretty good to watch rather than, I don't know, seeing Richmond again, or Hawthorn or Collingwood. So from that standpoint, it's like cool. Yeah, but I do hope Bulldogs win for Treloar.
Yeah, I think that's what it all boils down to. I think there's quite a few Collingwood supporters would be happy in that respect as well.
Yeah, I think Eddie McGuire would be one of them. He'll claim it somehow, won't he? Let me ask you a totally just hypothetical thing too before we sign off. So I was watching 3 minutes of a footy classified clip, and it was Matthew Lloyd talking about Trent Cotchin surrendering the captaincy at Richmond and who the potential successors were. And then he went through a list and he said there were like 8 other captains who were in the same position who could like relinquish the captaincy and just focus on their playing. And, while the club could actually groom a new captain. And he brought up Scott Pendlebury as an example. And typically the question was thrown to Eddie McGuire. And Eddie McGuire said he would make Scott Pendlebury an assistant coach.
And you wonder why everyone's happy he's no longer there.
Yeah. I was just baffled by that. It was like, and this is not to impugn Scott Pendlebury. He might be a fantastic coach, and I can understand they're talking about the Luke Hodge role and all that, but I'm thinking, surely he's pretty much doing all that already, isn't he? As captain, he's running around ordering people about and geeing them up and doing all the captaincy sort of stuff. To just sort of appoint him an assistant coach when you've had a new coach come in, it's like, I just found that really bewildering. It's like, hey, Craig McRae, welcome to Collingwood. Here's your new assistant coach, Scott Pendlebury.
Can you get my buddy a job, please? Wink, wink.
Yeah.
No, I think, look, Pendles could be a great coach one day, but he needs to do what the likes of Tony Shaw and Nathan Buckley didn't do.
He said it.
Fuck off somewhere else and then come back.
Oh, don't come back. You have to come back. Why do you have to coach Collingwood? Just go and have,
Well, look, I can understand the club you've known, the club you loved, you'd obviously probably want to nominate that ahead of anyone as one day your ultimate coaching destination, but you just need to get away from that Collingwood and just experience other club culture.
Yeah. I'm just looking from the viewpoint that if Pendlebury left Collingwood and he never got back to Collingwood, but he had a successful career, I'd be happy for him. It's like Lee Matthews.
Oh, yeah. No. Don't get me wrong. I'd love that as well. But, if you were dead set on coming back to Collingwood one day, make it a long day and go and learn some things away from it.
Oh, he won't need to come back because McRae will coach for 15 years and win 4 flags.
No, I'd take that.
I'm being unrealistic, of course. I want 7.
Because I was thinking today, like fucking the Dogs, when did they win their flag? 2016, was it?
Yeah. And then Richmond won 17. Yep.
Yeah. And if they won another one this weekend, their supporters have been starved forever, have seen just as many flags as I've seen in all my fucking years in the space of 4 years.
Well, I'll put this to you hypothetically. If the Dogs win, so they win 2 from 2 in 5 years, or 2 from 2 in 60 years, because they haven't made another grand final since 54 or whatever that was. Yeah. Meanwhile, we've won in that same 60 years. We've won 2 from, I don't know, what is it, like 12 or something?
112 appearances.
What do you prefer, to not get there constantly and only win 1 out of every 4 or 5, or just when you get there, like Richmond. Richmond played in free and won free. Do you prefer they just sort of had a really good strike rate, even though that might mean they don't get back up there with the same sort of dynasty for the next 30 years?
I mean, there's that whole approach that, you've got to make it to win it, but we just don't win them often enough that it scars you. It's a really difficult question to answer because obviously you want them to keep making them. You want them to fucking win them though as well. I just don't think I've got that many losses left in me.
Do you think
I carry each one like a wound that's never fully healed.
going back to 218 and
Do you have to?
Yeah. And
Why
as
don't you give me a nice paper cut and pour lemon juice on it?
And I was sitting right behind Dom Sheed when he marked.
I think everyone was.
And I saw the angle, I saw the distance, and I just automatically, and I didn't want to think this, so but automatically, he'll get it. Naturally, he'll fucking get it. And I know a lot of other people felt that way because it was as, one of our friends said, they just find new ways to break your heart. So do you think, like as spectators, we watch and we wait for them to find ways to lose it? You go back to 210 and you had that mark Goddard takes right in front of goal, about 20 out. That is a fucking awesome mark, but it doesn't get the acclaim it deserves because it led to a draw. But if you actually go back, that's like a really good, that's fucking up. The Jezelenko mark gets all this acclaim from 1970. I reckon the Goddard mark's bloody better.
It's huge.
But the, St Kilda tie, but I know at that stage, a lot of people were thinking, oh no, it's going to happen again, and that I think it was Lenny Hayes who kicked it long, and then the off or the leg break it took the bowl Stephen Milne to bounce through for a point. People expected us to lose it when the situation comes up. And I recall when we won in the replay, you were very wary on any texting. It was like, no, not yet, not yet, not yet, and it was just like, do you think that gets into the players' minds also?
I think it's surely, look, you think so. It's a burden that you carry winning a Collingwood premiership or attempting to win one. I think no matter which way you try and probably calm the moment, you would have a weight of expectation around you. And I think that's probably worked against us a hell of a lot.
Yeah,
I mean, you hear the stories that the players don't buy into the history and all that sort of stuff, but I think it does. I would think it would.
I think it does, and I mean, I think the other thing too is I'm not in the dressing rooms of the players and shit like that, but I do wonder. I do wonder, how the club itself cultivates the psychology of the players, because you look at Richmond in 217 and they were just fucking ruthless, and every grand final they won, they were pretty ruthless, whereas I think I've only seen that at Collingwood in 1990 in the was it, in the 10 grand finals or whatever I've seen. The only time I really saw the team as just genuinely fucking ruthless is that 1990 team. They were, when you see them walk out and you see their faces, and like Tony Shaw's fired him up because he's made that famous speech, I've played in 2 losing grand finals, I'm not going to play him free. And like people talk about the draw throwing off Essendon, the qualifying final draw throwing off Essendon's rhythm and shit like that. But it's just like, you look at the way we played, I don't think fucking anyone's going to beat us. And people say we're lucky we didn't meet Hawthorn. Again, I think we'll just smash them because they were just primed. They had 2 years of just going out the finals in straight sets, and was a young team sort of coming up, and they'd complemented it by bringing in guys like Russell and Francis. And then you had guys like Shaw and Dacos who'd been there a while, and Dennis Banks. It was just like that day they were going to run over anyone. And they had players in there who, if they had the opportunity, they'd run for you. They'd fucking hurt you, not illegally or anything, but they were just sort of scary players to stand over the ball when they were coming at you. And 210, I don't think we had that sort of side. We've had a few of those players, but I don't think we had that sort of side. So I just wonder about the lists we cultivate. Do they really have that ruthlessness in them?
Oh, yeah, I think in the past, no, but I think that's something that Fly and the group there will certainly be looking to bring some hardness to that club. I mean, I don't think either of them shirked too many contests in their careers. I think you'd have that ethos with you, and I think they'd be more than comfortably aware of the fact that we're not a very hard side, and we should be.
Were you affronted by McFly's comment about, he knows about winning habits?
Is there, you going somewhere with this?
No, I know there was a couple of people who go, "Oh fuck, isn't that a little bit arrogant?" But I'm just curious.
Oh, you've got the evidence there in your back pocket.
I mean, he's obviously had the success at Brisbane, and then he had success as a coach, or assistant coach at various clubs. So it's like, I think he's got every right to say he knows about, winning mentality. Any final thoughts? Who's your tip for the Norm Smith medal?
The Bond.
I'll go for Treloar.
Why am I laughing?
And by the way,
I'd be happy with that, but I don't think so.
By the way, good on Luke Beveridge for backing Treloar after the fucking all that criticism in the second week of finals because Treloar had a bad game, and it was all like, he looks like he's sulking, and it's just like he did help turn the game against the Bombers, which a week earlier. And no player ever has had a bad game. It's always to do with something else. And then fucking the media turned on Beveridge. I don't think he was entitled to say that. It's like, fucking look at the narrative you guys are writing, you wankers. Well done, Beveridge.
In the media these days, they don't teach anything other than the fact that history is only 6 days old.
Is it that old? Anyway, that's it from us. We'll be back with another special sometime in the future.
I think it's probably a little bit over the top to call these things special.
Oh, they're really special. Daniel Andrews gives them his stamp of approval. If you could describe something else that was shaped like his head, what would it be?
There might be kids listening. I'll refrain. I'm going to plead the fifth.
I doubt we have kids listening.
No, it wouldn't rhyme with runt or anything like that, though.
It's not attractive at all. Yeah. Anyway, that's it from us. Later.
Catch.